My wife laughed. You're too weak to fight me. Ready to take everything. She thought I was beaten and alone, but she forgot my one secret weapon. The brother I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. In court, her smug smile vanished when he sat next to me and said, he doesn't have to afford me. I'm his older brother. My wife, Evelyn, informed me last Tuesday that she wanted a divorce. There was no sadness in her eyes, no regret in her voice. It was a declaration of victory, a cold, calculated assertion of power that left no room for sentiment. We were sitting in the living room of the house we had spent 8 years turning into a home, a fortress of memories where my grandfather had helped me lay the down payment. And she was speaking to me with the detached finality of a corporate executioner, dissecting our shared life as if it were nothing more than a balance sheet to be optimized. It's over, Tom, she said, her voice devoid of warmth, placing a meticulously organized file folder on the polished mahogany coffee table between us. I've already spoken to a lawyer. These are my terms. I didn't open the folder. I didn't have to. Her words, sharp and precise, listed her demands, each one a hammer blow to the life we had built. She wanted the house, the very foundation of our existence, a place intrinsically tied to my family's legacy. She wanted 70% of our shared savings, a lifetime of diligent work and frugal living systematically dismantled before my eyes. And, as if to salt the wound, she wanted spousal support for a minimum of 5 years. It wasn't a negotiation. It was an unconditional surrender, a demand for the complete obliteration of my financial future. It wasn't a request. It was an execution order for my entire world. When she was finished, Evelyn leaned back against the plush cushions of the sofa, a smug, confident smirk playing on her lips, her eyes gleaming with a predatory satisfaction. And I don't want to fight on this, Tom, she said, her voice dripping with condescending pity, a false kindness that felt sharper than any insult. Let's be realistic. You're a high school woodshop teacher. You make a decent living, but you can't afford a real lawyer. My guy will bury you in legal fees before you even see the inside of a courtroom. It's better for you to just agree to the terms and walk away. I just sat there, my gaze fixed on this woman I had loved, this woman I had built a life with, and I felt a deep, freezing chill that seeped into my very bones. She didn't just want to leave me. She wanted to ruin me, to leave me destitute and alone. She saw me as weak, as an obstacle to be crushed and discarded, a mere pawn in a game she had already won. Her biggest weapon, she thought, was my inability to fight back, my quiet nature mistaken for impotence. I let the silence hang in the air for a long moment, the unspoken words and the weight of her cruelty pressing down on me. Then I looked at her, my face a mask of resignation, my voice barely a whisper, and I said the two words she was expecting to hear, the words that would seal my apparent defeat. You're right. The relief on her face was immediate, stark, and utterly infuriating. It was the face of a victor who had just witnessed the complete capitulation of her opponent. She had won. A humble, simple teacher, the man who had loved her unequivocally, wasn't going to put up a fight. She stood up from the sofa, smoothing the imaginary creases from her expensive skirt, her movements radiating an air of untouchable triumph. Good. I'm glad you're being sensible about this, she purred, her voice still laced with that sickeningly sweet pity that was far more demeaning than outright contempt. You'll be served with the official papers next week. Try to be prompt. With that final, dismissive instruction, she walked out of the room, leaving me alone in the shattered remnants of what was once our home, the silence echoing with the profound insult of her victory. Here's what Evelyn knew. She knew I was a man of simple means, a woodshop teacher who valued craftsmanship and quiet dedication over wealth and power. She knew I didn't have tens of thousands of dollars to throw at a legal battle, not the kind of money that would be required to stand against her guy. She also knew that I had a brother, an older brother named Marcus, a name that, even in my internal monologue, carried a weight of both awe and resentment. What she also knew, and what she was banking on with a chilling certainty, was that Marcus, and I hadn't spoken in 5 years, our estrangement, she believed, was absolute and irrevocable. Marcus isn't a teacher. Marcus is a force of nature, a legal predator in human form, a shark in a tailored suit. He is, without exaggeration, the most feared and expensive divorce attorney in the state, a titan of the courtroom whose very name makes other lawyers nervous, their confident smirks falter. His reputation precedes him into every courtroom, a silent herald of impending legal annihilation. And he was, for all intents and purposes, no longer a part of my life. Our falling out had been monumental, a chasm of pride and misunderstanding that opened wide after our parents died 5 years ago. It was over the family home, the house we grew up in, a place imbued with the laughter and love of our childhood. I, the sentimental brother, wanted to keep it, to preserve it as a sacred memory. a tangible connection to our past, a place for our future families to gather, to forge new memories. Marcus, ever the ruthless pragmatist, saw it as an illiquid asset, a financial burden rather than a sanctuary of sentiment. He wanted to sell it, divide the money, and move on, severing the ties to the past with the cold efficiency of a corporate transaction. We had a bitter, terrible argument, fueled by grief and stubborn pride, an argument that ended with us on opposite sides of a canyon of unyielding resentment. We hadn't spoken since, the silence between us growing thicker and heavier with each passing year. Evelyn had witnessed the tail end of that fallout, her keen, calculating eyes observing our fractured family. She saw me as completely and permanently isolated from the only powerful person in my family, a man stripped of his strongest potential ally. In her meticulously crafted strategic calculation, my greatest potential asset was a dead one, a card I could never play. She was wrong. For 3 days after her chilling announcement, I was in a dark place, the oppressive weight of impending ruin suffocating me. She was right about one thing. I couldn't afford to fight her, not on her terms. The thought of losing my home, my savings, everything I had worked for, everything my grandfather had helped me build, was a crushing burden that stole my breath. On the fourth day, I hit rock bottom, a despair so profound it felt like a physical place, and from there was nowhere to go but up. I swallowed every ounce of my pride, a pride that had cost me my brother for 5 long years, a pride that had kept us apart for far too long. With a trembling hand, I found his private cell phone number, a relic from a past life, stored deep in my old contacts. My hand was shaking violently as I dialed, the small, rhythmic vibrations against my ear a stark counterpoint to the turmoil in my chest. I expected it to go to voicemail, a cold, impersonal barrier, or to be answered by a sharp-voiced assistant, another layer of his inaccessible world. But after 2 agonizingly long rings, a familiar deep voice, one I hadn't heard in half a decade, answered. "Hello, Marcus," I said, my own voice sounding weak and foreign, a pathetic croak to my own ears. "It's Tom." There was a long, heavy pause, a silence that stretched and threatened to break the fragile connection between us. For a terrifying moment, I thought he was going to hang up, to dismiss me as easily as he had dismissed our childhood home. "Tommy," he finally said, the old nickname, a relic of our shared past, sounding strange and distant after so many years. His voice was laced with a hint of surprise, but also a flicker of something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. "What's wrong?" And it all came pouring out of me, a torrent of words fueled by humiliation, betrayal, and a desperate, fragile hope. I told him everything, about Evelyn's cold demands, her predatory lawyer, her unwavering cruelty, and I told him her final, arrogant taunt, the words that had echoed in my mind like a death knell. "You can't afford a lawyer to fight me." Another long, heavy silence stretched between us, this one different, charged with a new, potent energy. When he finally spoke, his voice was transformed. Surprise was gone, replaced by something I hadn't heard in years. A dormant force awakened. It was the sound of a protective older brother, a steel resolve hardening his every syllable, a quiet fury simmering beneath the surface. She said, "What?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet, each word a threat. I repeated her exact words, feeling a strange surge of empowerment as they left my lips again. "Okay," he said, the single word a chilling promise. "When and where's the first court appearance?" "Next Tuesday at the downtown courthouse," I told him, a faint tremor in my voice. "I'll clear my schedule," he stated, his tone leaving no room for doubt or argument. "Don't talk to her. Don't talk to her lawyer. Don't sign anything. Just show up on Tuesday. I'll meet you there." We hung up, the click of the phone severing the connection, but not the newfound resolve. I sat there, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and a terrifying hope, a fragile seedling of defiance beginning to sprout in the barren landscape of my despair. Evelyn thought she had disarmed me, stripped me of all my weapons. She had no idea she had just handed me a nuclear one, a weapon forged in the fires of brotherly loyalty. She was about to learn a very hard lesson about what family really means. The morning of the preliminary hearing was a miserable, rainy Tuesday. It felt appropriate, the sky mirroring the somber weight in my soul. I walked into the downtown courthouse alone, feeling every bit the part of the defeated, pathetic man Evelyn expected me to be. My shoulders were slumped, my gaze fixed on the scuffed marble floor, the image of resignation carefully cultivated. I was wearing my best and only suit, a dark, conservative garment usually reserved for weddings and funerals. Today, it felt like a bit of both. The funeral of my past life, and the reluctant, terrifying wedding to an uncertain future. I entered the designated courtroom, its heavy oak doors closing behind me with a soft thud that seemed to seal my fate. It was a sterile, impersonal room, filled with the faint, unsettling smell of old paper, anxiety, and stale coffee. Evelyn was already there, sitting at the plaintiff's table, directly across the aisle. She looked incredible, radiating an almost blinding aura of self-assured success. She was wearing a sharp, dark blue power suit, meticulously tailored to accentuate her slender figure, her hair perfectly styled in a severe, professional bun. She looked confident, smug, and utterly ready for a corporate takeover, a legal predator herself, poised to devour my remaining assets. Next to her sat her lawyer, a man in his late 50s, with a permanent, self-satisfied smirk etched onto his face, a veteran of countless emotional battles. They were laughing quietly together, their whispered conversation punctuated by hushed chuckles as I walked in, their casual demeanor a deliberate show of dominance. Evelyn saw me, and her carefully constructed smile faltered for a second, replaced by a fleeting look of pity, as if she had expected me to appear more broken, more utterly crushed. I just met her gaze, my expression deliberately blank, a mask of weary resignation, and walked over to the defendant's table, its cold, hard surface a stark reflection of my current reality. I sat down, placing my old, scuffed leather briefcase on the table with a quiet sigh that was almost imperceptible. I waited, my hands clasped tightly in front of me, feigning an air of passive submission. Her lawyer, Alan Davis, a man whose expensive suit did little to hide the shark beneath, stood up and sauntered over to my table, his movements deliberately slow and condescending. "Mr. Miller," he said, his voice oozing with a patronizing politeness that made my skin crawl. "I'm glad to see you're here. I trust you've had time to review my client's very generous proposal. If you're prepared to sign today, we can make this quick and painless for both parties." He offered me a pen, its gleaming silver a stark contrast to my worn briefcase, the gesture a silent invitation to immediate, unconditional surrender. "I'm waiting for my counsel," I said quietly, my voice carefully modulated to convey a lack of fight, a hesitant hope rather than true defiance. He actually chuckled, a short, dismissive burst of air. "Your counsel? Good luck with that, Mr. Miller. Let's not drag this out, shall we? You know as well as I do that you're out of your league." He walked back to his table, his back radiating smug certainty, convinced that I was a broken man with no recourse. The bailiff, a stern-faced woman in a neat uniform, called the court to order, her voice echoing in the suddenly hushed room. The judge, a formidable-looking woman with piercing eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, entered and took her seat with an air of practiced authority. She looked down at the docket, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Miller versus Miller," she announced, her voice crisp and clear. "Are both parties present and represented?" Evelyn's lawyer, Alan Davis, stood up, a picture of confident professionalism. "Yes, Your Honor." Alan Davis representing the plaintiff, Mrs. Evelyn Miller. The judge's gaze then shifted to me, the defendant, her eyes assessing my slumped posture, my blank expression. Before I could even begin to formulate a response, to utter the rehearsed lines of my feigned helplessness, the heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom swung open with a resounding thud that vibrated through the very floor beneath us. Every single head in the room, lawyers, clerks, spectators, even the judge, turned simultaneously, their expressions a mixture of surprise and sudden, inexplicable dread. Walking down the aisle, his presence instantly dominating the sterile courtroom, was my brother, Marcus Sterling. He wasn't just wearing a suit, he was wearing a suit of armor tailored from what looked like spun midnight and pure, unadulterated intimidation. It clung to his powerful frame with an almost predatory grace, the fabric exuding an aura of ruthless efficiency. He moved with the controlled, predatory elegance of a panther stalking its prey, his expensive leather briefcase swinging with a silent, lethal rhythm at his side. A visible wave of whispers, a ripple of stunned recognition, swept through the courtroom as other lawyers and court staff recognized him. His formidable reputation, a legend whispered in hushed tones, preceded him, filling the room with an almost palpable tension. He didn't look at anyone else, his laser-focused gaze fixed solely on me, a silent, unwavering promise. He walked directly to my table, a man on a mission, placed a hand on my shoulder, and squeezed it gently, a gesture of profound, unspoken reassurance that sent a jolt of raw hope through my weary body. Then he sat down beside me, placing his gleaming, onyx-black briefcase on the table with a solid, definitive click that echoed through the silent, suddenly breathless room, sealing the fate of Evelyn's meticulously crafted triumph. I looked over at Evelyn, who sat motionless across the aisle. Her smug expression, the one she had worn with such confidence just moments before, had been wiped completely clean from her face, erased as if by an invisible hand. It was replaced by a mask of utter, horrifying disbelief. Her jaw was slack, her perfectly styled hair suddenly seeming disheveled by the sheer force of her shock. Her eyes were wide, vacant with terror, as if she had just seen a ghost, a specter from her deepest fears, walk into the courtroom and sit down at the opposing table. Her lawyer, Alan Davis, looked even worse, his face a ghastly shade of pale, the color completely drained from his usually florid complexion. His permanent, self-satisfied smirk was gone, utterly obliterated, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated terror, a primal fear that distorted his features. He knew exactly who my brother was. Marcus leaned over to me, ignoring the stunned silence, the gawking faces, the entire room. "Sorry I'm late, little brother," he whispered, a hint of a genuine smile, a flash of warmth, playing on his lips, a stark contrast to the glacial coldness of his public persona. Traffic was hell. Then he straightened up, his demeanor instantly transforming. All business, all ruthless efficiency. He looked directly at the judge, his gaze unwavering, his presence an unyielding force. "Marcus Sterling, Your Honor," he said, his voice a commanding, resonant baritone that filled the room, asserting his dominance with every syllable. "Representing the defendant, Mr. Thomas Miller." The judge's eyebrows shot up in a clear display of surprise, a ripple of recognition. She knew the name. Everyone did. Then Marcus turned his gaze slowly, deliberately, like a predator fixing on its prey, towards Evelyn. He looked at her, then at her terrified lawyer, a minnow caught in the jaws of a great white shark, and he gave them a cold, predatory smile that promised absolute annihilation. "My apologies for the delay," he said, his voice dripping with mock politeness, a silky venom that made Evelyn flinch visibly. Then he looked at Evelyn again, his eyes piercing through her facade of confidence, and delivered the line that shattered her entire world, a phrase that would echo in her nightmares for years to come. "He doesn't have to afford me. I'm his older brother." The game had just changed. Evelyn thought she was coming to a surrender, a quick, easy victory. She had just walked into a meticulously planned ambush, a legal trap from which there would be no escape. Marcus, without another word, opened his gleaming, onyx black briefcase. He pulled out a thick stack of files, their crisp edges a harbinger of doom, and the demolition began. He immediately rejected all of her initial demands, declared them predatory, and filed in bad faith, his voice a hammer blow of legal authority. Then, with a chilling finality, he announced our intention to file a counterpetition, a legal maneuver that instantly put Evelyn on the defensive. He stated, in no uncertain terms, that we would be seeking a full forensic audit of all marital assets and expenditures for the last 3 years, a deep dive into every financial transaction she had made, and to add insult to what was rapidly becoming catastrophic injury, he declared that we would be demanding Evelyn pay for all of my legal fees, a financial burden that would crush her self-satisfied triumph. Evelyn's lawyer, Alan Davis, a man who minutes earlier had been oozing condescension, just stood there, stammering, his face a picture of utter bewilderment and terror. He was a minnow who had just been cornered by a great white shark, and he knew it. The battle, for Evelyn, was over before it even began. The 2 months following that first court appearance were a legal blitzkrieg, an unrelenting, systematic assault orchestrated by my brother, Marcus. He does not do things by halves. He doesn't just practice law. He wages war. Evelyn and her lawyer, still reeling from the shock of Marcus's dramatic entrance, thought they were going to roll over me, the unassuming woodshop teacher. Instead, they found themselves on the receiving end of a relentless, systematic assault, a legal machine grinding them into submission. The first thing Marcus did was file a motion for discovery that was, by all accounts, a thing of terrible beauty, a masterpiece of legal strategy. It wasn't a mere request for information. It was a demand for every single financial document Evelyn had touched for the last 5 years. Bank statements, credit card bills, work expense reports, Venmo transactions, everything. It was a dragnet designed to catch every hidden detail, every suspicious transaction. Her lawyer, in a desperate, futile attempt to stem the tide, filed a motion to have it dismissed as overly broad and harassing. But the judge, clearly intimidated by my brother's formidable reputation and the cold, unyielding logic of his arguments, took one look at Marcus's meticulously crafted justification and approved our motion in full. Evelyn was legally obligated to turn over absolutely everything, her carefully constructed financial secrets about to be exposed. She thought she was clever, that she had hidden her tracks, her financial misdeeds buried beneath layers of obfuscation. She had no idea she was dealing with a man who employed an entire team of forensic accountants for fun, experts who reveled in uncovering financial fraud. While Evelyn was drowning in paperwork, frantically trying to comply with the overwhelming discovery demands, Marcus went after her personally. He scheduled a series of depositions, Not just with her, but with her closest friends, her unsuspecting family members, and even a few of her unsuspecting colleagues. His strategy was simple, yet devastatingly effective. Apply pressure from all sides, relentlessly and systematically, until the truth, no matter how deeply buried, was squeezed out. The breakthrough came during the deposition of Evelyn's best friend, a woman named Chloe, whose loyalty Evelyn had once considered absolute. Chloe was fiercely loyal to Evelyn, but she was no match for my brother. Marcus was polite, charming, and utterly ruthless, a velvet glove concealing an iron fist. For 3 relentless hours, he questioned her about Evelyn's extravagant spending habits, her frequent work trips, her general happiness in our marriage, his questions designed to chip away at Chloe's carefully constructed defenses. Then he asked the question that broke the case open, a question so unexpected it sent a shiver down my spine. "Miss Albright," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerously quiet tone that demanded attention, "can you tell me about Mr. David Kincaid?" I saw Chloe flinch, a subtle but unmistakable tremor of fear passing through her. The name was completely unfamiliar to me, a ghost from Evelyn's secret life. Marcus just waited, his gaze unwavering, his silence more intimidating than any shouted accusation. Chloe tried to play dumb, stammering out vague denials, but Marcus, with a theatrical flourish, produced a thick stack of credit card statements from a card I never even knew Evelyn possessed. It was a card linked directly to our joint savings account, an account she had been systematically siphoning money from for over a year, funding a life I knew nothing about. He pointed to a damning series of charges: a luxurious hotel in the picturesque wine country, exquisite jewelry from a high-end boutique, expensive dinners for 2 at exclusive restaurants. Miss Miller was on a work conference on these dates, according to her initial filings, was she not? Marcus said, his voice laced with icy sarcasm. But her employer has confirmed no such conference existed. You were not with her, were you, Miss Albright? So, I ask you again, who is David Kincaid? Chloe broke. Under the penalty of perjury, her carefully constructed facade crumbled. She admitted it, her voice barely a whisper, thick with shame and fear. David Kincaid was the man Evelyn had been having an affair with for the last 18 months. He was a wealthy real estate developer she had met through her old job, a man whose financial status clearly appealed to Evelyn's insatiable greed. And suddenly, it all clicked into place. The secrecy, the exorbitant financial demands, her unwavering confidence, the smug, triumphant look on her face when she delivered her ultimatum. She wasn't just leaving me. She was leaving me for someone else, someone she perceived as an upgrade. She was trying to strip mine our marriage for assets, to take everything she could with her into her new, upgraded life. A life she intended to fund with my money and my hard-earned savings. Her audacious plan was to use my financial stability to fund her future with her wealthy lover. The deposition of her lover, David Kincaid, was even more illuminating, a brutal dissection of Evelyn's deceit. He was a smug, arrogant man, clearly accustomed to getting his way, but his arrogance crumbled under Marcus's relentless, surgical questioning. He admitted to the affair, his carefully cultivated bravado dissolving under the weight of legal scrutiny. He admitted that he and Evelyn had planned the divorce together, a calculated conspiracy to defraud me. He even admitted that it was his idea for her to demand the house and the exorbitant spousal support, telling her, in his own callous words, that I would be too poor and too weak to fight back. They had underestimated me, the quiet woodshop teacher. More critically, they had catastrophically underestimated my family, the silent, powerful force they never saw coming. With these damning depositions, Evelyn's case was not just weakened. It was utterly annihilated, reduced to a pile of ash. She had committed perjury in her initial filings by falsely claiming she was a faithful wife. She had hidden assets and systematically siphoned marital funds. She was a liar and a fraud, her carefully constructed public image crumbling into dust. Her lawyer, Alan Davis, now a broken man, called Marcus, begging to settle, his voice a pathetic whimper of desperation. He said Evelyn was willing to drop all her demands and just walk away, to cut her losses, and disappear. Marcus's reply was cold, precise, and utterly uncompromising. "No," he said, his voice like chipped ice. "Walking away is a privilege she has not earned. We are not settling. We are going to court, and we are going to burn her to the ground." She wanted a fight. Now she had won. A battle she was destined to lose spectacularly. It has been 6 months since I first walked into that courtroom. A man who thought he had lost everything, stripped bare of his dignity and his future. Today, I can tell you that I was wrong. I didn't lose anything that truly mattered. In fact, I gained it all back, and more. The final court date was a mere formality, a ceremonial sealing of Evelyn's fate. Faced with a mountain of irrefutable evidence against her, the damning depositions, the meticulous forensic accounting reports, The undeniable proof of her sordid affair and her blatant conspiracy to commit fraud. Evelyn had no choice but to surrender completely, her once confident facade utterly shattered. Her lawyer, Alan Davis, looking tired, defeated, and utterly broken, advised her to accept any terms we offered, knowing full well there was no other option. And the terms my brother Marcus had drafted were brutal, a testament to his unwavering commitment to justice. Evelyn didn't just walk away with nothing. She walked away with less than nothing. She was forced to relinquish any and all claims to the house, the home my grandfather had helped me secure, the very symbol of our shattered past. Her outrageous demand for spousal support was dismissed with prejudice, a permanent black mark against her name. And because Marcus was able to meticulously prove that she had spent over $60,000 of marital assets on her affair, on luxurious hotels, lavish gifts, and extravagant vacations with her lover, the judge ordered that exact amount to be deducted from her already meager share of our savings and returned to me. She left the marriage with a small fraction of her original predatory demand, a mountain of her own exorbitant legal bills, and the public, excruciating humiliation of having her entire sordid scheme, her web of lies and deceit, laid bare in a court of law for all to see. The fallout in her personal life was just as devastating, a brutal domino effect that left her utterly isolated. Her lover, David Kincaid, a man attracted only to power and success, faced with the crushing legal and social consequences of his actions, dumped her almost immediately. He was a man who was attracted to a winner, and Evelyn had just suffered a spectacular, public defeat, her carefully constructed image of success utterly destroyed. Her friends, many of whom had been forced to testify about her lies and deceit under oath, quickly distanced themselves from her, unwilling to be associated with such a public pariah. In one fell swoop, Evelyn lost her fiancé, David, whom she was apparently planning to marry, her house, her savings, her boyfriend, and her carefully cultivated reputation, all because she catastrophically underestimated the quiet man she was married to, the man she thought too weak and too poor to fight back. But the real story, the most important part of this whole brutal yet ultimately redemptive chapter, is what happened with my brother, Marcus. A few weeks after the divorce was finally finalized, a silence settled between us again. But this time it was different, a peaceful quiet rather than a chasm of resentment. Then, Marcus called me, his voice softer, more human than I had heard in years. "Meet me at the old house," he said, his words a surprising invitation to reconciliation. I drove out to our parents' home, the house that had been the source of our stupid, stubborn 5-year feud, the very place that had driven a wedge between us. I found him on the porch, just sitting on the steps, bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. We didn't talk about the case, the legal battle, or the satisfying ruin of Evelyn. We didn't talk about Evelyn at all. Instead, we talked about our dad's terrible fishing trips, his endless, fruitless attempts to catch anything but a cold. We talked about our mom's amazing apple pie, the scent of cinnamon and nostalgia filling the air as we reminisced. We talked about being kids, the simple joys and innocent mischief of our shared childhood. Finally, after a long, comfortable silence, he looked at me, his eyes softening. "I was wrong, Tommy," he said, his voice laced with a genuine regret that touched me deeply. "I was so focused on the money, on the asset, on its perceived value, that I forgot what this place truly was. It's our home, our legacy, a tangible connection to everything that mattered. I was wrong too, I admit it," the words flowing freely, unburdened by years of pride. I was so stuck in the past, so afraid of letting go, that I wasn't willing to see that maybe there was a different future for this place, a new way to honor our memories. We didn't sell the house. We decided to keep it together, a shared legacy, a symbol of our renewed brotherhood. We've spent the last few weekends out there, side by side, fixing it up, breathing new life into its aging walls. We're repairing the creaky porch, painting the sun-faded rooms, bringing it back to life, not as a shrine to the past, but as a vibrant project for our future. It's no longer a memorial to what was lost. It's a promise of what is yet to come, a place for our family, the real one, the one forged in love and loyalty, to gather, to heal, to laugh, and to create new, cherished memories. Working side by side with my brother, tools in hand, the familiar scent of sawdust and fresh paint filling the air, has healed a wound I thought would be a scar forever, a testament to the enduring power of brotherly love. Evelyn's parting shot to me was that I couldn't afford a lawyer, that I was weak, alone, and without recourse. Her greed, her arrogance, her unwavering belief that I was nothing more than a simple, easily defeated man. That was the very thing that forced me to make the call, the desperate plea that brought my brother back into my life. She thought she was isolating me, stripping me of all support. Instead, She reunited me with the most important family I have, a bond far stronger than any legal contract. She tried to leave me with nothing, to utterly ruin me. But as I stand here today, with my home secure, my dignity restored, and my brother, my true family, firmly by my side, I realize I have gained everything.